Wade was born December 4, 1940, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. After attending an all-white high school, he traveled with Dr. Martin Luther King to Selma on a dare by a black college roommate. His experiences there taught him the deep oppression perpetuated by our, quote, civilized society. Once he graduated college, he served as pastor of a church just outside Kent, Ohio. That became the underground meeting place for the Students for a Democratic Society, SDS. After the Kent State killings, he returned to get a master's degree from McCormick Theological Seminary and was ordained as a Presbyterian minister. Burnt out on his past activism and organizing, he moved to Denver and began working in a nursing home. With years of civil rights, war on poverty, and anti-war organizing experience, he could not ignore the oppression he found there. So he began to deliver Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream of freedom directly to the doorstep of the disability ghetto, the nursing home. In 1971, while on staff at Heritage House, a Denver nursing home, Wade tried to work within the system to dignify the lives of the young disabled residents. A recent TV movie on ABC with Fred Savage entitled When You Remember Me chronicled this story. Wade and the residents' efforts were doomed to fail, but they did give birth to a better alternative. In 1974, Wade founded the Atlantis Community, a model for community-based and consumer-controlled independent living, named for the lost continent of Atlantis, thus easily forgotten and dismissed. The first members of Atlantis were those young adults incarcerated in Heritage House from which Wade had been fired. Forgotten by the system and often by their families, these individuals were not forgotten by Wade as he began to liberate them from nursing home into the Atlantis community. Years later, Wade and attorney John Holland masterminded a $32 million lawsuit against Heritage House nursing home for obstruction of justice and violation of civil rights. The case went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. Today, many of those original nursing home residents are raising families in homes they now own. In 1978, Wade and Atlantis realized that if people with disabilities were to truly live independently, they would need and should have the right to accessible public transportation. On July 5th and 6th, 1978, a gang of 19 disability activists and Wade held their first inaccessible bus hostage in the Denver intersection of Broadway and Colfax.
In Denver, it was a rush actually meeting Wade and hearing war stories about how in 1978, the gang of 19 blocked city buses to get wheelchair lifts put on them. Like Rosa Parks in Montgomery, those 19 people just wanted to ride the bus like everybody else. So they got out of their wheelchairs and laid in the street, and those buses couldn't move for a day and a half.
See, that's the first act of civil disobedience of its kind, so the police didn't know what to do. They called the mayor. Mayor Nichols said, I don't want any disabled people arrested in the city of Denver. That was his position. Mm-hmm. So I said, all right, everybody, we can rape, pillage, and plunder. The comparison is Denver, who did civil disobedience starting in 78, has all accessible buses, and Chicago, who didn't do civil disobedience, now has 600 out of 3,200 accessible, which is less than 50%. So if you're...
And the moral is civil disobedience gets you what you want.
Right, and ahead of time.
Leader Wade Blank is not in a wheelchair. He says he learned his protest tactics from Martin Luther King in the South and from the anti-war movement.
We're teaching disabled people to become more assertive and to eyeball the able-bodied power structure to making them fess up to their lack of understanding of disabilities. So I teach how you take power away from those who have it and how you give it to those who don't.
Atlantis' decision to take the fight for lifts on buses to the national level soon led to the birth of ADAPT, American Disabled for Accessible Public Transit. ADAPT was the nation's first direct action grassroots movement of disability activists and since has mushroomed in over 30 states, Canada, Sweden, and England. Like the freedom fighters of the 60s, ADAPT's struggle for accessible public transit became a national battle cry of the 80s. Over the course of the 8 years of biannual national demonstrations throughout the country, hundreds of ADAPT activists and their families and friends were arrested for their beliefs and commitment to ensure civil rights for all disabled citizens. ADAPT organized the Wheels of Justice March in March of 1990, and Wade played a key role. It was a call to action that galvanized the disability rights movement to demand swift passage of ADA with no weakening amendments. Over 1,000 disability rights activists from across the nation joined forces with ADAPT to demonstrate to the world that they were to be taken seriously. In his pursuit to free others from the chains of oppression, he was arrested 15 times, and proud of it. Wade Blank's story, including the development of Atlantis and ADAPT, was officially accepted into the National Archives 2 years ago.
If you dream, you're not defeated. If you try, you haven't failed. If they don't have ramps in heaven, God's in trouble, Wade's in jail. When we finally overcome, we'll thank Wade for what we've done. He said, there's nothing you can't do if you will try. By and by, when the morning comes, all the saints got together at home, tell the story of how we've overcome. There's nothing you can do if you will try. No, there's nothing you can do if you will try.